The animation in The Lion Guard is, to say the least, a mixed bag. Most of the time, the animation is competent and gets the job done well. Other times, the quality drops down to almost comically bad. On a few occasions, however, there's a scene that is so well done that I'm inclined to stop and rewind the video so I can examine it more closely. I'm sure that most of this inconsistency comes from budget and time constraints, since the quality of a particular piece of animation is largely dependent on two major factors, namely, the skill of the animator and the time they have to spend on their work. But before discussing the quality of the Lion Guard's animation, it would be prudent to go over the show's art style, which is different than what was originally seen in The Lion King. Many of these changes are undoubtedly designed to make the show more kid-friendly. The lions of the show share largely the same art style as the movie, with major differences coming in small fur details and shadows on the body. The lions also have slightly larger eyes and an overall slightly more cartoony look. The hyenas of the show represent the largest departure from the style of the original film, with rounded muzzles and less pointy teeth. This is clearly the biggest area where the show's creators wanted to make the show more appealing to a younger audience, but, that said, it does make most of the hyenas in the show look quite a bit younger than the hyenas seen in The Lion King, which has given rise to a popular fan theory that Janja, Cheesy, and Chungu might be the offspring of the three main hyenas of the film, Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed. The rest of the animals seen in the show have very different art styles as well, but I believe that this is mostly the result of the fact that outside of the main cast of the movie, there were almost no animals with named voiced roles, and as such were kept much more realistic and less cartoony. Although, this has some inconsistencies within the film itself, since, during the opening Circle of Life sequence, there are some meerkats shown in a quasi-realistic style, a style which is not shared at all with the character Timon, who is introduced in the middle of the film. It is thereby consistent with the movie for the TV series to introduce a more cartoony art style to its animals in the name of anthropomorphizing them to the point where they can be legitimate characters in its episodes. Just by looking at the art assets seen in the show, it is clear that it is all done digitally, but with outlines and details that give it a semi-hand-drawn look. The style works well for the show, and overall I find the style of the Lion Guard to be perfectly watchable, though there is a bit of a shock when transitioning from watching the original film, since the changes in style are slight, but very noticeable. Now that the art style has been covered, I'll return to the main topic of this video, the animation of the Lion Guard. While I can't say for certain, I have a theory that in order to keep up with production demands, the animation team uses a system similar to this one developed by a duo cartoonist. Such a system allows for quality work to be produced many times faster than it could be otherwise, but it can only take you so far. There could be times when the angle the scene calls for simply isn't easily done with a character's rig, making a need for compromises which might not look as good as it could. Some notable examples of this include this shot from Never Roar Again, where Nala is defending herself from Janja and his clan. Her actions feel stiff and uncoordinated, which, if my theory is correct, is a result of her animation rig not being up to the challenge of her making the actions the scene requires of her. Another time when the animation feels much stiffer than it should be is this scene from Lions of the Outlands, where Kion jumps off a rock ledge to launch himself back into a fight. There's almost no transition between him jumping on and jumping off. This one might not actually be a result of Kion's animation rig, but it does represent an instance of the show's animation falling flat. But one of the most glaring errors I've seen so far comes from The Rise of Scar, where Beshti turns to talk to Bunga, and the underbelly color of his skin creeps up his cheek to his big grin position, even though his mouth is clearly far below. This is one of those rare instances where I noticed something so incredibly off that I laughed out loud. But for the most part, the animation of the show works smoothly. Facial expressions and dialogue are almost always done perfectly with very few exceptions. The five main characters, Kion, Fuli, Bunga, Beshti, and Ono, are all well animated, probably due to them having the most screen time and thus the most resources devoted to their animations. The animators make great use of the range of expressions made possible with the animal characters too. Ear and tail movements are things that human characters don't usually have access to, And the fact that they make good use of them in this TV series shows that the animators are willing to make use of all the tools at their disposal to make their characters as expressive as possible. I especially love how Beshti smiles contentedly and waggles his ears. Come to think of it, I just love Beshti. Sure, his character is heavily grounded in a basic, big, nice guy stereotype, but within that framework, his character has transcended the stereotype to become something more, and his animation does a lot to drive that home. Beshti often throws his immense weight around like it's nothing, demonstrating his great strength, and he frequently throws himself sidelong right into the thick of things, using his girth as an impenetrable wall. The way he does this, all with a determined yet still cheerful expression on his face, tells mountains more about his character than dialogue alone could ever hope to do. The other four main characters are also heavily grounded in stereotypes, but to be honest, most real people's personalities can be boiled down to something more general, so I don't see the use in trying to define characters in a work of fiction by the stereotypes they fit in. Good fictional characters are supposed to be written well enough to defy such categorization anyway. Fuli, Kion, Ono, and Bunga each have animation that solidifies their characters into more than what mere writing and voice acting can do as well. Kion exudes confidence and determination in everything he does, except when he doesn't, but no one's perfect, and serves as the perfect leader for the guard. His animation reinforces this by making the most of his young yet sturdy frame. He is always standing tall and proud, with his feet squarely on the ground. Fuli is often seen with her head down, sleek and fast, even when she's standing still, and Ono's hunched shoulders hint at his tendency to be reserved and thoughtful. Then there are the times when the animation really shines. Times when a camera angle is used to add an extra level of cinematic flair, with the characters holding up despite the unusual angle that their body is viewed from. Or times when a character's facial animation really adds volumes to their emotions. These moments aren't as frequent as I would like, but the fact that they're there at all adds volumes to the overall quality of the show. Finally, I'd like to point out the general increase in quality between the first and second seasons of the show. For the most part, there seems to be an added level of competence overall. There's nothing I can put my finger on specifically, but it just feels a bit better. I'm going to chalk this up to the team being more experienced with the project, but there are some specific instances where there has been a massive leap in quality. During the first season, when characters would get covered in mud, it would often look like a mud-ish layer was slapped over their normal character model, and that was it. But in Season 2, the mud has a new level of detail and care that is unprecedented for the show. It is a small thing, but I found that it really is the small things that count in animation. Overall, I think that The Lion Guard is a well-animated show, with lots of room for improvement and many improvements already being made. Thanks for watching.